for joining us today. This webinar is designed to really introduce to you the YourSix peripherals solution that we do have. This is something that we very recently released, and we're going to get more into the middle of the presentation here. You'll really see the true value of how it extends the solution that we do offer. What the agenda looks like is I'm going to kind of tell you, look, here are the things to know. It's what we're going to cover in the presentation. If you're going to screenshot something, it's the next slide, and that's those things to know. We'll talk a little bit about who YourSix is, the solution itself. We'll talk about peripherals, introducing it to you, going through the value, some use cases, the migration away from the current solution, do a demo, and then we'll review those things to know, right? Those key takeaways. Now, again, this is the screenshot one, right? This is the one, if you're going to take something, this is what you take. Down the right side of the screen, you see a couple different resources. First one being myself. My name is Philip Heaton. I am the commercial success manager at YourSix. You can see my contact information there. And if you don't know who your channel manager is at YourSix, or you don't know who to get in contact with, if you've screenshotted this slide, then there's my contact information. You can reach out to me and I'll make sure you'll get to the right person. Below that are a couple of other resources that are available to you. First one is the status page. Highly recommend you go and you subscribe to it. You'll get notified of any types of maintenance or anything like that that goes on with the platform, and it really allows you to stay in the know immediately upon anything that may affect you. We have our academy, our YourSix Academy, which will allow you to get trained and certified. We have our new documentation, which you can see the link for there, docs.yoursix.com. And in that, you'll have things like just basic manuals on how to do things, but also why we do things the way we do it. It's just as important to understand the philosophy behind why we do things the way it works, more than just the how. So, and then wrapping it up is our YouTube page. Go subscribe to it. Got about 100 some odd videos on there. Make sure you go look at that. As far as key takeaways go, we're going to review this. We are direct to cloud physical security done right. And I know looking at the group here, we've got some new names I haven't seen before and some partners that are probably new and getting introduced to YourSix. And so we are going to talk about kind of how we do things, why we do it this way, and what differentiates us, right? It's not every cloud, VMS, and physical security PSAS solution is the same. Talk briefly about what all makes up the solution that we do offer, which now includes access control and now includes peripherals, which is what the core of this is. It really allows you that additional control and insight into your environments. And then, again, check out the resources and get certified at the end, all right? So, high-level introduction to YourSix for those of you who are new or just kind of getting rolling with us. We are headquartered in St. Paul, Minnesota, but we do have our Center of Excellence, which is where our development team is in Lund, Sweden. Joining me on the call today is Johan. He is our Director of Product. He will talk to you mainly about the peripheral section, but he is over in Lund and is part of that team over there that really develops this truly amazing product and solution that we have. Now, what we are is a open direct-to-cloud platform for physical security. And what that means is basically the cameras, the physical, actual endpoints, those go directly to the cloud. They are not, no servers, no appliance or anything like that that's required on site. So directly to cloud. And we're an open platform, meaning you can use a third-party camera manufacturer on our platform. The one we work with is Axis Communications. And so you can take those Axis devices, connect them to our platform directly, no server. And what that does allow you to do is kind of protect that investment. So if somebody does, invest in a bunch of cameras, they own that investment in the cameras. We're not like some of the camera VMS systems out there that, hey, you've got to use our cameras. If you don't use it, they're bricks, right? We are a fully managed service. Now, this means that we believe that it is our responsibility to make sure that your devices are patched from a firmware perspective, the software's patched, you're in the know from a actual device health, the platform health. This includes proactive health monitoring. All right. So devices on our platform, we see CPU overutilization, something like that. We notify you of it. All right. And on top of it, again, we manage the firmware on those endpoint devices so that they're always up to standard. We are 100% through the channel. You will find us through, whether you're coming to us through the wholesale type of environment, so such as distribution, but we do not go directly to end users. So come through us as a partner, as an integrator, is how we interact. We have our SOC 2 certification or attestation, which does allow us to go into certain environments, particularly things like banking, those really high security types of environments. And we do have a SOC 2 audit that we can provide those customers out there that do require that. They're like, hey, can you prove that this solution meets the cybersecurity standards that I have? We've got that. All right. Already talked a little bit about it, but it really is what sets us apart. That serverless piece. One of our main goals is reducing the amount of hardware on site, reduce the failure points on site, the attack vectors, and part of that is reducing that single point of failure, that server, that bridge, that appliance. We remove that. We don't want you to have that. Quite frankly, if you have a bunch of sites, we don't want you to have to go to each site and keep buying these appliances. And lastly, look, we're here to provide you with the best experience we possibly can. You'll see we really push that tagline of "We've got your back." It is a vitally important thing that we are a customer first type of industry or company, and we're here to support you in whatever you need. Talk a little bit about what kind of makes up the entire solution, right? So we talked about kind of who we are, but let's talk about the actual solution and what you can offer here. Obviously, in an environment, you've got video surveillance, and which we do support. You've got PTZ, thermal, fisheye, box cameras, bullet. That's really your visual eye out there from a physical security standpoint. It's what you expect, right? Now, it's the other things that really do add on top of it that make it really special and make it really a truly insightful platform. First one being audio. Every single security environment should have some piece of audio, whether that is taking in audio or whether that is a live talk down or a speaker or something like that. So wrapping in audio, also utilizing analytics such as person or vehicle detection, even things such as just privacy masking in certain areas and those analytics that the camera can utilize. We have introduced our access control recently within the last year, and that does really allow for the full access piece in a unified platform that you'll see when Johan does demo the product. Sensors, so whether that's radar, PIR, and really kind of allowing for a full sense of what can't be seen in the environments. Now, all of these wrapped up together, also you can add the professional monitoring piece on top of it. And we do not perform professional monitoring. We enable professional monitoring. It means you're able to bring in some of the largest central monitoring stations in the US and actually have them as a resource to monitor your environments. And so, again, from a professional monitoring standpoint, we enable it. We work with some of the top softwares that are out there, and we typically supply a sub 10-second response time from them getting the video for them to be able to react and then take whatever action they may need. From a product and where it fits, there are a lot of different types of industries out there. A couple years ago, I sat down and started looking through our entire customer list and tried to kind of summarize it, right? Where are we really strong? And the point is we're a little bit of everywhere. We've got everything from your small stores with 2 or 3 cameras and a speaker in a retail location, all the way up to an enterprise, large campus environment with 1,200 cameras plus, right? We do work really well in those environments that do require that SOC 2 attestation, which is really nice for us to go into, such as they're like banking, but also areas that are multi-location. So if you have multiple locations, you don't want to, you need to manage those multiple locations from a single pane of glass. This is how you do that, right? As a platform like this. High value outdoor assets is another really big one. And really to kind of pat ourselves in the back, Fortune 500, NFL franchise, NBA franchise, Major League Baseball. And so what you can really tell is the vertical, the industry, the size of it, it is a platform that can, meet needs of any of those types of environments. And so really understand you can go position this as a one platform fits most of your customers. We'll briefly talk about architecture because I do think it's important. I've already kind of hammered on the serverless piece, but the gist of this is I can take a radar, a speaker, an access door controller, I/O board for the peripherals we're going to talk about, your camera, and I just need to give those power and give them an internet connection. All right. So PoE switch. I plug these devices in. I can make a connection to the platform, and that can all be managed from any type of device. We're talking you can from your browser. I can do that from a mobile device. We've got iOS and Android mobile apps, and so really anywhere, anytime, from any type of device. And what this architecture allows for is a couple of different things I want to hit on. One is the fact that we're removing that single point of failure. We're removing that single attack vector. We're allowing you to not have to pay significant money, capital expense at every type of environment, every type of new site you have, those kind of things. You don't have to buy those servers. Part of redundant architecture is also how we do storage. So our platform does utilize cloud storage for video footage. We can also do the SD card in the camera, which is highly recommended, and we can support an NAS if we need. I would tell you almost all of our customers utilize SD card plus cloud. They have that redundancy and kind of add to that redundant architecture, that redundant solution we're providing. Talked a little bit about the proactive health monitoring, but I really want to hammer that home because that is a true differentiator for us as a company. We are able to basically go out and say, you've got CPU overutilization, RAM overutilization, the device is overheating. Those types of things that are going to provide insight into the product and that something's wrong before it actually causes a problem that deters it from its capabilities, right? So, I don't want to find out that my device isn't working properly or that the analytics aren't working properly once something happens. That kind of defeats the purpose, right? And so part of investing in a high value asset, such as your security system, is making sure that it is actually working properly. And part of that is that proactive health monitoring. It does include things like, obviously, if the device goes offline, we'll notify you of those kind of things as well. The last one I do want to talk about here is the security piece. We talked about the SOC 2 side of things, but we really are, as an organization, built on cybersecurity as a foundation. We, every decision we make covers just security in general from a trust perspective. And again, we can provide that SOC 2 attestation, the SOC 2 audit for any of those environments that are needed. But again, kind of just summarizing this is we are providing you with an architecture that is redundant. It doesn't have single points of failure. We provide insights into the environment itself from a proactive health monitoring. And without that need for additional boxes everywhere, you get that infinite scale. I don't have to add anything besides the actual endpoints at each site. And then all of it, again, managed from anywhere, any place, anytime, doesn't matter the device. All right. So with that, I'm going to jump over. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hand this off to Johan. We're going to go into the actual peripheral side of things. I will say that if you have any questions, anything like that, drop them in the chat. I'll be following the chat as we go through here. But yeah, if you have any questions, drop them there. I'll get to them, or I'll get to them at the very end. And with that, I'll introduce Johan. He is our director of product, and is somebody I'm really lucky to call a coworker as well as a friend. So Johan, to you.
Thank you, Philip. So talking about YourSixOS peripherals, we'll go through what that is, why we're productifying it, and why we're headed this way. We'll talk about how to use it in solutions and applied scenarios, and we'll talk about the relatively simple migration path that is going to be needed in order to utilize peripherals to its full extent. And wrapping up, I'll be performing a brief demo for you to see how peripherals look like in action. So what are peripherals really? Digital input and output signals have been around in the industry since its inception in the shape of alarm components such as smoke detectors, door position switches, and sirens. As you know, many access device models come with digital input and output ports that can be used to connect such components. And the peripheral is our software abstraction that we built in YourSixOS to build a feature set around the digital I/O ports. The reason we didn't simply call it the digital I/O port is because the peripheral carry a bit of the semantical difference. So a peripheral comes with a number of different types, such as smoke detector, panic button, strobe light, sirens, and so forth. There's technically no difference in how they work in the platform other than their visualization. So with different icons and different visualizations, you can quickly see that this is a smoke detector and not a panic button in comparison to just being a generic I/O port. Input peripherals come with what we call a severity level. So an input peripheral can be either informative or alarming, and output peripherals come with what we call forced confirmation, which is basically a configuration setting that forces the user to confirm when they're activating the output peripheral. This is typically used when the output peripheral is of more serious nature, such as a siren or perhaps a smoke generator. So what functionality does a peripheral bring? Just as any other thing, such as a barrier in YourSixOS, peripherals produce events when being activated and deactivated. Events, as you know, can be logged, and they can be notified upon by creating a notification rule, either to submit the notification to a third-party system, such as Microsoft Teams, an incident management system, or even a strobe speaker, right? Push notifications, email notifications, and so forth. Peripherals can be live viewed, meaning that both input and output peripherals can be brought into Matrix, and you can thus see an input's state, and you can also see the output's state. Additionally, outputs can be live controlled, meaning that in Matrix, just as you can live control a barrier, you can now also live control a peripheral. And furthermore, an input peripheral can be used as a source for an alarm group state, typically used when you have an alarm panel deployed at the same site and you want to use that alarm panel to be the single source of truth for your security system, as when YourSixOS is being used in combination with an alarm panel. So, a couple of reasons why we're headed in this direction. First one being that security needs a broader lens. We believe that there's a bit of lack of unity in the competitive landscape. If you look at our competition, there's access control platforms, there's video management systems, and there's alarm panels and so forth, right? Some access control platforms, they merged with their alarm panel offerings so that there's a combination of alarm panel and access control in one solution. Some video management systems have tried to bolt on access control in what they call still a VMS, and you know, the story continues. But what we think is that there's no real single pane of glass in the industry, and that's why we're building one. We also believe that we can augment the video monitoring experience by detecting the unseen, really. So what does that mean? There are certain environments where cameras cannot see. Dusty, cloudy, you know, harsh environments with impaired, you know, vision. Secondly, there's environments where cameras may not see. Privacy-sensitive areas, such as bathrooms, locker rooms, and so forth. In these situations, you can deploy peripherals instead to get an understanding of the scene. We also believe that we can provide a more holistic situational awareness for the alarm operators by bringing in more evidence. Consider the following examples. Panic button was pressed and gunshot was detected at roughly the same time. Then you can dispatch police immediately. Another example is when a door was forced open and roughly at the same time you have a smoke detector going off. You don't have to verify the smoke detector at that point because you have two things indicating at the same time that it's not a toaster being used aggressively or something like that. it's actually a fire, so you can call firefighters immediately. And then after that, the alarm operators can use video to, for example, guide police or guards or firefighters when they arrive at the scene. And in the end of the day, we believe that this adheres to the same principles that cybersecurity typically adheres to, with defense in depth and layered security, but this time in the industry of physical security. The other reason why we're investing in peripherals is we want to go beyond security. And we believe that peripherals can help with telling the full story, especially if you use them as informative peripherals. Consider the smoke detector going off again. Say that the alarm operator can then see that there was some fire hazardous equipment being turned on at the time, such as a welding rig or perhaps a soldering iron or something like that. If they see that, then they can verify the alarm using an adjacent camera before dispatching firefighters, right? So they see that there's a smoke detector going off, fire hazardous equipment is turned on, verify first before dispatching firefighters. Another example of how we go beyond security with input peripherals is you can easily create an audit log. Like I was saying before, all peripherals, they create events, right? When they're activated and deactivated. This means that these events can be logged and used in hindsight to know when appliances were turned on and off, when lights were turned on and off, or when doors and windows were opened and closed, respectively. So looking at the migration path going from the old implementation that we had of basic I/O to peripherals, all configuration will be automatically migrated when it comes to the hardware. However, since peripherals is a new type of thing, barrier is another type of thing in YourSixOS, peripherals will come with their own event topic. This means that the old device level peripheral activated event has been deprecated and will live until June 2026. And there's a new event introduced on the peripheral topic. This means, in essence, that there is a peripheral level input activated event that you can use. The big difference here is that the peripheral level event will tell which peripheral, which port it was that triggered. That was never available on the old device level activated event. So that's a huge improvement right there. In the end of the day, migration will be needed for those who have notification rules set up with the old event included. To make it as clear as it possibly can be, this is how it looks like in practical terms. Don't use the device level peripheral activated event. Use the peripheral level input activated and input activated end events if you're interested in when the input was no longer activated. Okay. So we'll go through a couple of applied usage use cases and typical customer scenarios where this can be utilized. Like I was alluding to before, privacy sensitive areas. In some bathrooms, there's these accessible bathroom alarms deployed. These can be brought in as an input peripheral, and you can have a event being sent off to a central station, for example. You can also install a LED indicator as an output peripheral to have the alarm operator let the user know that help is on the way once that accessible bathroom alarm has been activated. You can also use PIR detectors for presence monitoring in places where cameras cannot legally go, such as locker rooms and bathrooms, I was saying before. Deterrence. So obviously you can use sirens and strobe lights connected as output peripherals. This can be used as enhanced deterrence, and that can be done gradually with the speaker talk down first. Say that you have a courtyard of some kind where there's an intruder approaching before he has, passed the perimeter. You can use a speaker to make a talk down first, and once he's past the perimeter, then you can activate sirens and strobe lights to, be more aggressive type of deterrence in that sense. Another example is that, as I was saying before, if you combine peripherals and so forth, and you use video for verification, and then you dispatch guards, when they arrive at the site, the alarm operator can guide them by turning on the right lights in, for example, an office building as they arrive, so that the guards don't have to, search for light switches on the walls and whatnot. Looking into infrastructure and industry, there's a couple of obvious use cases there. You can bring in signals from existing PLCs, programmatic logic controllers, and control systems in general. Perfect examples here: monitor tank levels, pressure levels, etc. I had an example on my LinkedIn earlier this summer where I used a pump to water my tomato plants on remote. That setup is going to be upgraded next year with a tank level switch to know if there's still water in the tank. You can also monitor whether machinery was turned on and running, like whether a pump was powered on versus pumping. Consider an air compressor, same situation there. An air compressor typically is powered on, but the motor only runs when the pressure is decreasing and, you need to pump in more air. So that type of machinery can also be monitored very easily by just hooking up relays on the power lines going into the machinery. Virtual guard tours. Turning off lights and appliances that should not be turned on, another obvious use case. And if you don't want to do output peripherals in that sense, you can get an understanding of windows and doors that needs to be opened with simple input peripherals. And thus you can perform a physical guard tour only if needed to do so. You don't have to do physical guard tours to check if windows and doors are open anymore. You can simply enroll them into YourSixOS and perform the physical guard tour only if needed. So, doorbell buttons, another very simple yet efficient and effective use case. Can simply install a push button by a door. Use the input activated event to trigger a profile on the D4200 strobe speaker, and then send the input activated event to Microsoft Teams or Slack or any other system, and then use an output peripheral to unlock the door. And primarily here, the most important thing is actually use the event search in Hindsight to get to the exact right spot on the timeline when there was someone by the door. The purpose of sending an event to Microsoft Teams or Slack could be, for example, in an office space where you have where people are sitting in such a way that they don't necessarily hear that D4200 strobe speaker or don't see the door. So if people are working with headsets or something like that, then they will get a notification through Teams instead to let them know that someone is by the door. We actually have this in the Swedish YourSix office. So here is actually a notification in Slack. Someone is at the door, and yeah. Mobile surveillance units, aka trailers. Door position switches can be installed on the battery boxes to monitor for, the obvious use case of intrusion and tampering there. But there's a couple of other interesting things one could do. Like, for example, run a round-trip circuit along with a cable trunk going up the mast. And if someone decides to forcefully cut that cable trunk using a chainsaw or whatever, this will trigger immediately. Doesn't have to wait for the camera to go offline or anything like that, because that round-trip cable that, goes in the cable trunk, as soon as that is cut, if you have configured the peripheral to be normally close, now that circuit is open. So that will trigger immediately. And you can also install micro switches on the mast to monitor for rearrangement and, tampering. Same statement goes for the actual solar panels and so forth. Buses. Bring in inputs from brakes, wipers, horns, etc. You can install door position switches on the doors. And in case of an accident, YourSixOS will kind of act as the black box using the event log. You can tell the full story in Hindsight that first, the brakes were engaged. Secondly, the horn was engaged. and then you see in the perhaps the video cameras recording that a couple of seconds thereafter the accident happened. So that way you can prove liability and so forth. Wrapping up here, a couple of miscellaneous use cases. Power loss monitoring. I have a couple of friends who hunt. They have fridges full of expensive food. Using a simple relay connection on that fridge's power circuit, you can monitor that circuit for power loss, really. Panic buttons, flood detectors, other obvious use cases, audit log of lights, appliances, etc. being turned on and off, you know. Yeah. Okay, so we have arrived at the demo. We'll see if we can switch over here. Here we have a couple of cameras. We have one overlooking a door here. That's our main door to the Swedish office. If you haven't seen a demo of YourSixOS access control, I will do a very small widget demo of the door, the barrier widget that we have here, the door widget. That door is the same as this widget. So if I hit access here, you'll see that door opening. And you can see that the state of the animation here follows the physical state of the actual door. We'll take a couple of seconds. And here we go. Now that closes too. All right, so that's a live control. You can do the exact same thing with output peripherals. So consider this camera installed in the kitchen area. In this case, my colleagues turned off the lights in the open area, but they forgot to turn off the lights in the kitchen area. So I can do that on remote here. Deactivate. Lights were turned off. Over here we have a set of input peripherals, doorbell, glass break detector, panic button in the accessible bathroom, smoke detector in the open area, flood detector under the dishwasher, door position switch for the storage room, and a generic input peripheral for lights in the open area. So if the lights in the open area are turned on, we'll see that here. This will show us active then. I mentioned before that there's a semantical difference between peripherals that are marked as informative input peripherals versus alarming input peripherals. The difference is this. If those lights in the open area are turned on, that's not something I want to alarm on. That's a normal situation, right? That's not an alarm. So the only difference, the only change that would happen here if someone turned those lights on is that this label inactive would go active. However, an alarming peripheral, I have connected a push button switch across the in parallel with the flood detector here, which I'm going to press to fake an alarm, so to say. If I now press that, you'll see that you'll get a red box around the widget. That's the difference between an alarming and an informative input peripheral. When there's a flood, you want to know that. You want to get a red box around the widget to let you know that, hey, there's something to look into here. But you don't want the red box when someone has turned on the lights because that's completely normal, right? So I also talked about the event log and telling the full story in hindsight. Let's go into forensics. Let's go to combined events, a new event search function that we launched only to cater to this actual use case. Let's take YourSix AB and we'll add a couple of sources here. So we'll add camera entrance. We'll add, go to peripherals. We add lights open area. And we will also add the door entrance barrier. We added the camera entrance, the door entrance, and the lights in the open area. Then we add the events that we're interested in. And we are interested in video motion detection. We're interested in input activated end, and we're also interested in access granted. And let's do access denied as well. Okay, select. And then we enter a date range, and I think an hour should be sufficient here. So let's do 60 minutes, and we'll hit search. As you can see here, 4:47:01 p.m. camera entrance picked up video motion detection. 4:47:05, the lights in the open area were turned off. 4:47:10, access was granted with identity anonymous, direction out. That's a Rex button on door entrance. And like I was saying, you can use this to jump into the timeline at the correct spot. So let's do that. We'll click here, and we'll end up in the timeline. We see that my colleague here, he switched off the lights on the wall there. And here he uses the Rex button to exit the area. All right. With that demo, I'll hand over to you, Philip. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Johan. If you'll stop sharing, I'm going to grab over and jump to this. Let's see. Share. There we go. So y'all should be able to see my screen now. And if you can't, hold on real quick. Johan, it still shows you're sharing, so you might have to hit stop sharing there. I think it's...
Oh, we'll see.
It won't let me stop you from sharing. There we go. And if you can't see my screen, you got to love Zoom. Across the top of the screen, it should say webinar, and then my screen should say, you should see it on the top of the screen, a couple tabs. Just make sure you're on the tab that's showing the YourSix integrator certification tracks. Want to wrap this up with covering a couple of resources. I did put some things in the chat, but one of those is the certification track. So we do offer a set of certifications for our integrators through our YourSix Academy. You can see here, got a kind of a professional course, a sales associate, and more of a technical course. And these do range on a time down there at the bottom. They do have, if you go to our Academy page, you will see the actual dollar value to these. Now, do recommend reaching out to your channel manager because we can waive those costs for you. And so additionally to the integrator side of things, there are end user courses. So if you are a partner, you're working with customers, you need a way for them to get trained on how to use the platform. The Academy does have the ability for you to go in and say, hey, person, here's basic navigation, here's basic end user administrative type of things as well. So utilize this in conjunction with the YouTube page for really getting trained and getting your customers trained. Next is the documentation. We already talked about this, but we are basically, I don't know if you've kind of gone to our website and really seen all of our resources. We are migrating most of those over to this new docs.yoursix.com. Obviously putting out PDFs and things like that, they age very poorly. And, as we make changes, those changes don't get pushed to the PDF you downloaded. So utilize the docs section of our new manual and reference page. And this will really allow you to see everything as we update and, really always be in the know with the most recent actual documentation. So wrapping up here, key takeaways for you to remember. We are a direct-to-cloud physical security single pane of glass, and we do it right. We don't do it like a lot of our competitors. We do things like proactive health monitoring. We do things like, pushing the video directly to the cloud instead of buffering it locally. We work with one of the best camera manufacturers in the world with Axis, have an incredible product with incredible different options there from an actual camera perspective, or even, audio, radar, the peripherals, the IO boards, all of those things as well. So does now include access control. If you have not seen a demo of our access control, Johan showed you a brief one. Reach out to us. We can go more in depth there. Same with the, all the rest of the physical security pieces. We do support access communications, door controllers, and really see how wrapping access control into a single pane of glass, kind of the full value in that. And then again, wrapping kind of up what we've covered here is the peripherals, right? One of the documents I did put into the chat is from the documentations page. It covers peripherals as a whole, more in words. It's kind of so you can reference, as well as there is a YouTube playlist in the chat that does show you a couple different videos. One is just live controls of peripherals, one is configuration, and one's migration. And lastly is a blog that we did put in the chat as well, written by Johan, that kind of covers really how peripherals are expanding, the capabilities in the platform. Now, next steps for you. Test the peripherals, start integrating it into your solution. Get used to what peripherals can, how it can expand your offering and give you so much more insight. Check out the new resources and become YourSix certified. Most of those resources are in the chat, but they're also along the right side of the screen. There's my contact information there as well. If you have any questions, reach out to us. I'm going to stay on for a minute to see if anybody drops any questions into the chat. But let us know if you have any needs. You want to see it in action. You want to know other use cases. We'll continue to kind of expand that blog section of our website so that you can kind of see more use cases of how we plan on kind of pushing the platform in certain directions. But thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Johan, for the presentation, and we'll stick around for a couple more minutes. Thanks everybody. All right. I think that's a wrap. Everybody have a good rest of your week.